Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're really plunging into something that affects all of us, I think. This whole pursuit of happiness.
It's everywhere, isn't it?
Totally. Do what makes you happy. It's like the modern mantra. You see it constantly.
Mm.
But the source we're looking at today asks a really sharp question. What happens when chasing your happiness tips over into, well, into selfishness?
It's a fascinating angle. We've kind of been taught they go hand in hand, haven't we? Personal desire, personal happiness.
Right.
But Mark, over at Knowledge is King, he really challenges that head on in his work.
Exactly. And then that's our source material for today's deep dive excerpts from his piece, The Pursuit of Peace Over Selfishness.
Some powerful stuff in there.
Definitely. So our plan is to unpack his main arguments, look at some maybe surprising connections he makes, and explore how our everyday choices might be hitting our inner state harder than we think.
Yeah.
The mission really is to figure out why Mark suggests that when happiness gets tangled up with selfishness, the thing you're actually missing isn't more happiness, but peace.
Peace. Interesting focus.
Let's get into it. So, society tells us, pretty loudly sometimes, prioritize yourself, prioritize your happiness. Especially now, things move so fast it feels competitive.
It almost feels like self-preservation, doesn't it? Look out for number one.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's just smart strategy.
And that's right where Mark jumps in with his main counter-argument. He basically says, look, when happiness is linked to selfishness, something vital gets lost.
Okay.
True happiness, the deep kind, becomes really hard to find. And peace. Genuine inner peace is just not there. It's quite a strong claim considering how much that me first idea is pushed.
It really is. And, Mark points out something interesting, selfishness, traditionally seen as, well, bad, right? A vice, negative trait. It feels like it's had a bit of a PR makeover.
Yeah.
Like now it's almost framed as necessary for success, for achieving things, for being happy, even a sign of strength.
And he describes this cycle that comes with it, which is really insightful. He suggests that, yeah, chasing self-gratification might give you a quick hit, temporary happiness.
That buzz.
Exactly. But it leads into this loop of never feeling quite satisfied. You're always needing the next thing, the next dopamine rush.
Right.
And the more you focus just on yourself, Mark argues, the less you naturally consider others. And that disconnect, that focus inward, actually creates this internal churning, turmoil, and crucially, no real peace. It's like trying to fill a leaky bucket, basically. You keep pouring in, but it never stays full.
That's a powerful image. Okay, so if that's the cycle, what about this peace Mark talks about? We usually think of peace as, external stuff.
Yeah, quiet place, no arguments.
Exactly. Absence of conflict.
And Mark acknowledges that stuff helps, sure, but he really emphasizes that true peace. That's internal.
Okay.
It's a state of mind, like a deep contentment, being at ease with yourself and how things are, even when the outside world is chaotic.
Right.
And here's the kicker. He says, when your actions are mainly driven by selfishness, getting to that internal state of peace, it's basically impossible. You just can't cultivate it if your core driver is purely self-interest.
Okay, so selfishness is like a roadblock to this inner peace.
Yeah.
Then what does lead to it, according to Mark? What are the ingredients for real happiness in this peace? Let's start with empathy. That sounds key.
Oh, absolutely central to his argument. And empathy, for him, isn't just like understanding someone's problem in your head.
Right.
It's about really connecting, actually sharing their feelings on some level. Mark argues that if you're only chasing your own happiness, your own stuff, you naturally pull away from others' needs. It creates this sort of isolated bubble.
Transactional almost.
Yeah, good word. Transactional.
Yeah.
Your main concern is just your own well-being. But empathy, he says, that allows for real, genuine connections. And those connections are what bring fulfillment. And importantly, peace. It shifts you from just taking to actually connecting.
I can definitely feel that difference when you truly connect versus just interacting. Okay, what about gratitude? He mentions that too.
Yeah, gratitude is another big one for him. He sees it as crucial for breaking that cycle of always wanting more.
The leaky bucket problem.
Exactly. He argues that when we're constantly chasing happiness, we tend to take the good stuff for granted. We focus on what's missing, what we don't have yet.
Right. The next shiny object.
So gratitude, in his view, is this deliberate practice of noticing, appreciating, being thankful for what's already there, the blessings you have right now.
So it's like shifting your whole focus from lack to present.
Precisely. From striving to appreciating. His work suggests that when you cultivate gratitude, you find joy and contentment in the now, instead of always chasing the next.
And how does that link back to peace?
Well, that feeling of contentment, of enoughness that comes with gratitude, that is a form of peace. It brings a fulfillment that just constantly chasing more can't deliver. It's like the antidote to that restless dissatisfaction.
Okay, so empathy and gratitude are these internal shifts we can make. But what about the ripple effects? Mark talks about how focusing only on personal happiness hits our relationships hard.
Yeah, he points out a pretty direct cost there. Selfishness, he argues, really corrodes meaningful connections, family, friends, partners.
Mhm.
Those bonds suffer when one person is mostly just concerned with their own needs, their own convenience. It pushes people away, leads to loneliness, and again, no peace.
So the opposite would be.
The opposite, he suggests, is focusing outward. Acts of kindness, genuine selflessness, caring about others' well-being. That, he says, brings a totally different kind of fulfillment, a sense of purpose.
Right.
Making a positive difference for someone else, according to Mark, brings a deeper happiness and contentment than just serving yourself ever could.
And there's another angle he explores, which is really interesting. This idea that selfishness can actually disconnect us from our own inner selves.
That's a subtle but important point he makes. Think about it. If you're constantly chasing the next external thing, the next desire.
You're always busy, always distracted.
Exactly. You might be super active on the outside, but internally, you're not settled, you're not at peace.
Mhm.
Because his analysis suggests things like self-reflection, introspection, just sitting with yourself.
Mhm.
Those are essential for finding that inner peace and real happiness.
And selfishness gets in the way of that.
Yeah. When selfishness is the main driver, we tend to neglect that quiet internal work. We lose touch with who we are underneath all the wanting and the doing. It's like becoming a stranger to your own core.
Okay, now, this next bit from Mark's work is, it's really provocative. It shifts the focus, again, from the individual impact to potentially broader societal stuff, maybe even a bit unsettling for some listeners.
It definitely makes you think. It's where he discusses this potential link between selfishness and control.
Right. Tell us about that.
Well, he puts forward some pretty direct assertions. I mean, quoting him here, the easiest way to control the people is to feed their selfish desires. And he goes on, creating a culture of selfishness is the simplest path to power over others. And another one, selfishness breeds obedience in a controlled society. He also throws in, manipulation thrives in a society where selfishness is celebrated.
So he's not just talking about personal failings here. He's suggesting selfishness can be weaponized or at least exploited on a larger scale.
That seems to be his argument. He frames selfishness as potentially more than just a character flaw. He calls it a powerful tool for manipulating the masses, even the key to controlling the thoughts and actions of many. Now, it's important to stress this is the perspective presented in the source. He's inviting us to consider this dynamic, how easily maybe a culture focused on individual gratification could be steered.
It certainly makes you reconsider that simple phrase, do what makes you happy, in a different light, doesn't it, when you see it potentially framed that way?
It does. It adds another layer to the whole discussion. So just to kind of circle back to the main thrust from Mark at knowledge is king. His core message is that real, deep happiness and fulfillment. You just can't get there through purely self-centered actions. It's a misunderstanding of how well-being actually works, in his view.
And the path to that inner peace he keeps highlighting is pretty clear in his writing. It comes through cultivating empathy, actively practicing gratitude for what you have, and making space for genuine selflessness.
Right. It's about shifting that default setting, moving away from just prioritizing your own happiness, your own desires, and intentionally considering others' well-being too.
And he argues that by making that shift, you find a better balance, a life that feels more peaceful, more meaningful, and, yeah, ultimately more fulfilling.
Exactly.
Some of his closing lines really hammer it home. Things like, selfishness is like a parasite that eats away at true happiness. That's pretty stark.
It is. And also, peace cannot thrive where selfishness reigns supreme. It leaves little room for doubt about his position.
So here's a final thought to leave you with. Building on that maybe unsettling connection Mark makes between selfishness and control. If encouraging selfish tendencies can be used as a tool, as he suggests, what does that imply about the kind of world we might be collectively building if we only prioritize our own desires above everything else? Something to reflect on, perhaps. Your own definition of happiness and how it connects or maybe disconnects from the well-being of the community around you.